Hey everybody, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today's my guest is Sarah Miskelly. Um, I had Sarah on because I have a lot of business owners and salespeople who are doing really well, and they've made some money, and they've bought the toys that they want, and now they're trying to do something that's going to help them create generational wealth or maybe supplement some income, but they really want to figure out that next step to do with their money to create more wealth. And and that's what Sarah does. She's been in real estate her entire life. She tells a great story about how she her journey to being an entrepreneur. And she has this boutique investment house for real estate for people who are appropriate investors to create. She puts them into the right deals and curates these things to help that individual create the wealth that they need or have that supplemental income that they need. So go grab a cigar, grab a cocktail, strap in for another educational episode of Sales and Cigars. Thanks. So, Sarah, appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule. Welcome to Sales and Cigars.
I'm so happy to be here. My husband's a huge cigar smoker, and that's how I found you. So here we are.
So that's interesting. We'll come to that. It's a cigars are kind of a unique thing. People love them or hate them, but there's certainly a brotherhood amongst a brotherhood and a sisterhood actually of a bunch of women who smoke cigars. So let's jump in. I want to talk a little bit about is there a book or is there something that you recommend somebody that wants to learn about real estate or learn about business? Is there something that you recommend people read or you gift often?
Rich Dad Poor Dad and his Robert Kiyosaki's second book, Cash Flow Quadrant. My dad made me read it when I was a kid, and it's really, I think, gotten me to where I am. And it's kind of one of those books that shifts your mindset and opens yourself up to a whole new way of thinking. And you'd already get this, as a salesperson, you're an entrepreneur, you're aggressive, you have to build a business. But that book has been pretty foundational for me and for a lot of people I know in the real estate investing space.
It makes you think. I've read the first one, not the second one. Full disclosure, but it sort of makes you think differently about business, about life, and about how to approach things from a practical and effectiveness way about it. It's how old were you when you read it the first time?
Honestly, I don't remember. I would say I was like 8 or 10. I'm trying to reference, like, at what age would a child appropriately read Rich Dad Poor Dad? But all I remember is I was very young, and it was a very strange thing for me to be reading at that age.
That's funny. Did he make you write a book report on it, or did you just read it and talk about it?
No, but we had a lot of conversations, and I was always helping my dad, manage his property when I was a kid as well. He'd make me do the books with him. He would make me clean units, walk checks to the bank. So it just kind of was part of our lifestyle. But I would definitely say it kind of shifted my context on, what I wanted to do in my career. Even though I was encouraged to go to university, I got into sales right away afterwards.
That's cool that he actually helped you. Excuse me. He helped you understand the practical aspects of business, and you got to see how the inner workings were. That's pretty cool. I love that. So, talk a little bit about. So, you went to university. You jumped into sales. What kind of sales gig did you have to start? Where did you go?
Yeah, so I got into real estate sales, kind of made sense because I grew up with a real estate background. And I really thought I was kind of another tool I wanted to add to my toolkit. I'm like, I know how to property manage. I understand some level of the investing side, but like, what would be the advantage for me in my life of really understanding real estate sales? So went into that, scaled it up pretty quick. I was like top agent under 30 in my city 3 years in a row. I was building like $1 million business, and then I got pretty burnt out. To be honest, working 7 days a week in real estate sales. I don't know what it's like in the profession you're in terms of sales, but yeah, that was a pretty hands-on, immediately available type of environment. But you also made a ton of money.
Well, but you're dealing with consumers about one of the biggest purchases of their life, and it's a lot of emotion involved. And you to be effective and to really grow that business, it's hard to put strong boundaries around if somebody needs your help on a Saturday or a Sunday. That's when people have time to go look. Um,
A hundred
yeah,
percent.
I can imagine. But how long did it take you to feel like, holy crap, this is overwhelming and I'm getting burnt out?
Yeah.
Is that
About,
3 5 years?
yeah, about 5 years, but I also approached it, like, pretty aggressively, like, I wanted to be the best, so, I didn't have to maybe go that hard, and I probably shouldn't have, because I just hated the whole profession afterwards, but definitely, it is something that was very emotional, and that's where I think I had some benefits because I had a lot of background in, like, personal development work. I did a lot of stuff at Landmark and things of that nature, so I was able to really listen well to people's needs and understand what they were going through, and that nurturing side, I do believe helped me a lot in that career, but it was a bit much, to be honest, especially in a hot market like Toronto.
So getting being nurturing in sales, um, being a woman, is that something that comes natural in is a sales role that you kind of care more than other people do? Is that a that's an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say that men don't care, and definitely there's no kind of I was raised to just be, if that makes sense. Like my dad treated me as a kid, I helped him do hammer nails, do roofing, all those type of things. But I do feel like as a young woman in sales, in such an emotionally charged environment like residential sales, there was that element where when people could trust you and they really understood that you had their best interest at heart and you knew that there was a consideration about like, okay, is their kid in a good school district or is there something that I'm looking for to support them in their family life? To me, that was an advantage. And then on the other side of things, giving a good smile, and when somebody maybe wouldn't let them into their unit or the security guards in a building, I gave a kind of nice smile and I was friendly. Probably that gave me a bit of an advantage. So I think it really served me, but it also comes down to like your attitude about things. Like, are you going to let you teach people how to treat you, right? So I think just being
Mm.
a strong woman has always been how I was raised, and that did benefit me, I would say, in my role in real estate sales.
Yeah, your dad probably taught you not to take any crap from anybody on top of that.
Pretty much, pretty much.
And property management, you learned that, carrying a hammer, doing what needed to be done on the property. That's really a challenge. That's the thing that kind of kept me away from buying. There was a time where we were like, we could buy some single family homes in a neighborhood for pretty low price. They were decent neighborhood, working class, and you could buy them and hold on to them, and just naturally create wealth. But the thing that really made me uncomfortable was that getting that phone call, like the toilet's backed up or a plumbing issue or the air conditioning's not working, because I'm not Joe Fix It. I'd have to call a guy to go get that done. Um, is that, I mean, having a property manager was a way out of that, but that eats into the profits too.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I actually ended up taking up over my dad's portfolio when I was 16. He died when I was very young of cancer. And so, as a young woman, a 16-year-old, I had to go then do those things. I had to meet contractors. We had a lot of work that wasn't done on the property. So it really taught me to grow up fast. But what the advantage, you always look back at your life and you're like, okay, pain, disappointment leads to destiny. And my ability to then enter into more understanding of different opportunities in real estate is really what got me to commercial real estate. And the time on task, as when you're in sales or you're just a busy professional in general, you don't have time to run around managing property, fixing things, but you're also spending a lot of money on taxes when you're making a lot of money, and you're also probably investing in other things and you don't necessarily have the time to know what's going on. So what I really got into was more of the commercial real estate side, where you're able to invest with other partners into larger assets like apartment complexes or industrial real estate, just like buildings that you'd see down the street. And that's really where you can kind of get into real estate, but without having to be Mr. Fix It, like you said, and deal with all the property management headaches and the tenants that don't want to pay rent or the broken toilets. So there's a whole world of real estate investing that not everybody knows about because a lot of the deals are private. But that's what I've been able to scale up in for exactly the reasons that you said. I didn't have time when I was in sales to manage things.
Hey everyone, Walter Crosby, your host of Sales and Cigars. Just wanted to give you a heads up that next month we're going to do a series of episodes on prospecting. We're going to cover all of the basics, all the fundamentals, the things that are going to help make your sales team be consistent hunters. What are the prospecting tactics? What are the things that we know that work, right? So how do we get prepared to do this? I'm going to go through all of this in 4 episodes. They're going to be just me. I'm going to be talking fast. I'm going to be talking about what we know works, what we know has worked for a long time, and probably what your sales team isn't doing. So if you're a sales manager, if you're a salesperson, if you're a sales leader or a business owner who wants to help your sales team, these episodes will be short and to the point, and they will be helpful. Go grab a cocktail, grab a cigar, and tune in for those upcoming episodes. Thank you. Yeah, because you're so focused on your craft and your career and your business. So I mean, and the listeners of this podcast are business owners. Guys and gals who have created a company out of sheer will. They've hustled. They've done what they needed to do. They have a certain amount of freedom. They have a certain amount of wealth, and they get to that point where you collect a certain number of toys and things that you've wanted, but now they need to stop writing those big checks to the IRS at this point, at least here in the States. So talk a little bit about what it's like and what it's like to work with you, but also in a big picture, what are these folks who have maybe 150 $250,000 to they want to put, and they don't need it, but they want it to grow, they want it, and they want it out of the market, but they want it in real estate. Like, what do they need to be thinking about? Can you kind of walk through that a little bit at a high level?
Yeah, for sure. And, they're not perfect for everyone. Investing passively in real estate does take a very particular mindset, just for business and investing in general. But for people that, are looking at diversifying, a lot of the investors I work with, they've maybe made great money in the stock market, but they're scared about losing it in another market crash. And they just want to, get some hard assets backing their capital. Some others are just looking to play catch up with their retirement, and they just need their money working harder for them. A lot of these opportunities, you're doubling your money in about 5 years. And a lot of our minimums are higher. You can't get into these passive deals a lot of the times unless you have about 100K to put into the opportunities, just because, the minimums are higher. The game is bigger than just, say, buying a single family asset. But what I would say is, the advantages to somebody who's making a lot of money, and that's why I got into it, is there's also tax benefits to it. So you can write off a lot of, depreciation from assets against your other passive income. So there's other reasons people get into it aside from just making more money. You may be getting passive income sometimes in terms of like monthly distributions. So for people who are just like, hey, look, I want to diversify my portfolio a little bit, what I do really in this role now, and what my sales background has enabled me to do, which you don't know what you don't know where it's going to take you, right? Is I'm now a fund manager. So I have a boutique investment firm, and I help people in sales, or people that are in an executive level in a job, or CEOs, to get their money working hard to them through commercial real estate. And essentially, I have partners who are top tier operators in the US, and I educate and walk through my investors on the entire process, ensure that they understand the risks involved, because like any investment, it is like buying a business or investing in the stock market. There's risk, but it's helping them understand and mitigate the risk. And I love it. A lot of my investors love it, and I think it's a really cool way to diversify your portfolio into something that you may have been really interested in, which is real estate.
And you're mitigating risk because you're working with a professional, right? That's one aspect of it. But you're also getting somebody that knows what's around the corner. You can help them understand that, if somebody's trying to maximize the tax advantages of an investment like that to work against their high income, there's a particular type of real estate investment that they would want to do, and others they might want to stay away from. Is that fair?
Yeah, like a lot of my investors, they have different priorities. And I think you understand this, like in sales, especially when you get into this type of stuff, these are long-term relationships. Like people that come into my world, I'm going to know them for the next 5, 7, 10 years. So it's mutual. I want to know if they're a good fit for my community. And they also want to know if they can trust me, because this is big numbers we're talking about. But really, for people that are looking for opportunities, I'm essentially in a way a broker of investments, and I'm playing matchmaker. So if they need cash flow, if that's somebody, for example, that's looking right now to get out of their W-2 or working as many hours, they want to supplement their income. So I may direct them towards a specific opportunity that has more cash flow versus somebody who's making a ton of money. They don't need the cash flow right now, but they want to build generational wealth. I would look at, placing them into a different asset that's a longer term play. So it really is getting to know people and understanding their pain points, which you'd understand in sales is a part of sales. And I'm understanding what people really need. And my entire time right now is making sure I'm finding top tier, well vetted opportunities that are institutional grade. This isn't like Joe down the street who bought a duplex and you're investing in it. No, these are apartment complexes that are 100 plus units that are being operated in almost a corporate way. But investors are getting the opportunity to get into those deals and get a slice of a bigger pie, essentially.
Is there in the market right now? We're talking towards the end of July in 24. So is it more challenging in this kind of a market? In the States, we have an election coming up that's going to make a big difference, let's just say, without getting into politics, as to the direction the country goes. How does that affect you finding opportunities? Is there a better time, up down market, to find investments?
There are always opportunities if you know the right people and they know where to find them. So, for example, right now with the relationships that I have in this sector, there's like a huge broker network, and brokers right now are hungry because the last few years with the Fed increasing interest rates so fast, there's been a lot of pain in the market. So, there's been a lot of foreclosures, there's been a lot of challenges. But the benefit right now is because we've seen that pain, we're now getting access to assets that are distressed that we can buy at a lower cost. And the biggest thing when there's challenges in a market is market, cycles are all built in. We know this. But if you can figure out how to profit in a down market, that's where you're going to win. So I'm not going to get too into it right now, but for example, some of the offerings we have would be like a fund that's private credit. So you're kind of like investing like BlackRock into these large deals, and you get better terms because banks pulled back on how much they want to give people that are buying these large assets. So you get to come in and get a higher rate of return and more security to your capital simply because the market isn't what it was a couple of years ago. So long story short with all of that is there's always opportunities when you know the right people and you know where to look and you know how to kind of protect yourself from market volatility. But like I said, there's always risk no matter what.
Sure. Yeah. Anytime you invest in something, there's a potential risk, whether it be even an FDIC insured savings account, right? You got 100 grand sitting in a big jumbo CD that's insured. Well, you better be first in line to go get that money because they're not going to have enough to cover all of those assets. So no, there's nothing guaranteed. But working with a professional, you're able to find the right deals, that are economically advantaged for there to make the upside over a period of time, um, just do better because of the nature of your relationships, the nature of your knowledge, and how to structure a deal. Because if you can structure a deal 100 different ways, and that's one of the advantages of working with you and your boutique. But would you call it a boutique agency or
Boutique
investment?
investment firm. Yeah, because essentially, I'm able to then partner with some of these top tier operators that I've built relationships with, that I'm investing capital with. And the advantage is people are able to then invest under a fund structure and come into these larger assets. So let's just say I'm bringing 1 million to a deal. I have an investor community that's then allocating, 250 here, 100 there, but they get an advantage by working together in terms of, their returns and the fee structure. So many advantages with working with a fund manager. But the biggest thing is just access to opportunities that they wouldn't know about because we are regulated by the SEC, and these aren't the kind of things you're just going to see on the internet, or you're going to just get told by your financial advisor is not going to tell you about this. You know what I mean? So as you know, a lot of the time when you get into bigger conversations, it's who you know, and who they know.
Well, and again, working with a professional, regardless of the market, always gives an advantage. And one of the things that you said that I think the listeners who have an interest in exploring these opportunities is that you're not looking to just sign people up. You're looking to make sure that what they need is what you can offer. So you're looking for fit,
Mhm.
and not just throwing deals around. You really want to make sure that you have long-term relationships, and that things work out for everybody, which isn't you know there's a lot of problems in sales, and you're taking that elevated position of we're not for everybody, and let's have a conversation, but let's see if there's a fit for what you need and what we do. Fair.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because if somebody comes to me and they're making great money in stocks and their house is paid off, I'm like, you don't need to really do this. Like, there's no point. And it's a mutual respect. Like, I'm not going to waste my time as, an ambitious person who's going to make sure I'm on the ball of getting them what they need if this isn't for them. And the other thing too is I don't want somebody putting their next mortgage payment into an investment. Like, I have some level of integrity and reputation to uphold in this. So it is, like you said, it's a longer term, more relational type opportunity. But if we kind of find that we are both benefiting in that regard, there is a lot of money to be made in commercial real estate, and there's a lot of education that I provide. Just having almost done this my whole life, that I really love educating and sharing with people on this journey for them to also learn and earn, essentially.
Yeah. And educating the buyer, educating your customers is part of what we need to do, and we need to make sure we're doing it with the right people. And I think that's an important piece of sales that is sometimes left out, because they just start salespeople will sometimes start pitching without really understanding if they're talking to somebody that's qualified, to do a deal with you, regardless of if you're selling a copier or a real estate portfolio. Um,
Mhm.
I'm curious if there's something that in your world, is there a guru out there? We don't need names, but is there a piece of information that people might hear that's like, you know, red flag, buyer beware, like, really run if you're hearing people talking about this particular topic or this type of advice? Is there anything out there that just kind of, irritates you because they're doing a disservice?
I would say overpromising on returns. There's a lot of financial structure that goes into, pro formas and projections for an asset. And what we've seen in the last few years, when everybody was winning in the unicorn market before things, went south with the Feds increasing interest rates, there was just a lot of big promises and assets were being bought for too much money. And what happened is, a lot of people lost a lot of money. So I think if people are looking to get into, passive real estate investing as an LP, so you would then be called a limited partner in these opportunities, just be very wary of big promises. Don't, just go after one team because they're offering the highest returns. You really want to look at what's their track record in the industry, look for investor references, find out, if they've ever lost money for their investors. Are they experienced in that asset class? Like, if their expertise is in industrial real estate and then one day they're offering you a mobile home park, well, you'd want to really do your due diligence to ensure that they know what they're doing. So there's a whole due diligence process that I walk my investors through, and I always want people to go into these eyes wide open. But I would say the biggest thing is don't get shiny object syndrome, and make sure that you're being responsible when you're putting your hard-earned money into any type of investment, but especially one that you don't have necessarily have control over, because you are looking to partner with experts. You really want to make sure they actually are experts in that field.
Myrtle and Gladys sitting at the kitchen table talking about knitting. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
But probably not your thing.
Yeah,
I know a Myrtle who's doing pretty well talking about knitting.
It's amazing at what hobbyist podcasts. That's why I be careful when I talk about hobbies podcasts and podcasting with a purpose, right? No, it's great. And there are a lot of Zoomcasts out there that do better than the professionally edited ones that we put out. Content will always win over what your editing style is, what your platform is, which if you got the nicest camera or not. So you always have to look at that content first. And that's one of the things that we really try to focus on too. Podcasting gives you this great ability to niche down too. Sales and cigars, those are two things that are really easy to get people interested in. But if you come to me and you're like, hey, I have a professional business and we like to rescue zoo animals and wax them into weird shapes, I'm like, great, I can get you like 19 listeners, but they're going to be the best 19 listeners everywhere, ever. So you have to have those expectations when you go into podcasting as well. And like you said, when you said no bullshit, I will tell you, because we look at it a marketing point. Before we ever edit the first episode, before we ever write a treatment, before we ever name your show, because we do everything from ground up. You can come to me with a rudimentary idea and we'll work over the next 2 to 3 months to build it to a podcast. You have to have the expectation of what is my listener base going to be? Who are they going to be? Who's going to listen? Who's going to consume this product? And I've had to have those talks and I tell you, nobody is going to listen to this. And so that's when we start talking about changes and stuff like that.
But if a slight pivot might work, and sometimes we need guidance, we need coaching, and I think that's a really good point. To me, my tip on this is you got to be authentic, right? You got to be trying to deliver value, but you got to be trying to do it for the right reasons. And if you're Mr. Funny Guy, okay, but you still got to deliver on something, unless you're just trying to make people laugh, right? Before we wrap up, I just a personal question for me. The first podcast I ever listened to was WTF with Mark Maron. And yeah, it's, I find him funny. I think he's a little lefty for me, but he's hilarious. But he's still audio only and he's got no intentions of changing that. And he loves his little piece. Is that, if somebody really doesn't want to do video, can they get away with that these days without, having his background?
Yeah, you're limited in what you can do with it, right? It's really hard to get people engaged on secondary media. Now, the marketing shtick that we use is you make a podcast. We can take that podcast, we can take that transcript and we can turn that into a blog. We can write show notes and we can take the video part of it and we can make it shorts on YouTube, blah, blah, all the good things, right? When you do an audio podcast, remember you're omitting 60% of the visual things that you can get out of that. Now you can take it to Canva and make a little audio track and 2 little things, and you'll keep people engaged for a little bit. But it's really, really hard to have any visual element or cross-platform your podcast if you're audio only. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a success in there for you. There's very successful podcasts that are audio only that now the plus side to that is you just take all of your advertising revenue and all of your effort and you put it into just audio platform things. I'm a little biased for video. I think it's quicker. I think it's easier. I think it's more forgiving. And I think it's easier to get it more places. But I'm always going to pick video over audio only, but you can get away with audio only, but it's just going to be a different style of podcast or a different style of marketing and release structure.
Some people consume it audio only, right? Mm-hmm. They're sitting in the gym and listening to Apple or whatever. And that's fine. But all of the other marketing components of it, the video comes into place. And Maron's just has such a big enough audience at this point. It doesn't matter.
No, and I mean, and that's exactly what we do, because this will be an audio podcast. Now we're filming it as a video podcast. We're making sure all the markers are there to film it as a video podcast. We want this to be released in video things, but we still take the audio out of it, clean it up, nice it up, and release it as an audio podcast. So we're just covering all the bases. As an audio podcast, you just don't have these bases. So maybe it's easier. Maybe I'm wrong and it's easier, but generally I like having all the options to do everything we can with the podcast to get visibility.
Absolutely. All right. let's land it there. So my normal question is there a relationship with cigars past or present? And we know there is because you're a
Yes.
cigar guy. We talked about that already. So let me reframe the question. Is there, like, if you could only have one cigar brand in your a brand, I'm not going to mint to one. If there was only one brand, what would it be?
You're going to
You could
laugh
only
at
have
me.
one.
And it may not be the brand, but my favorite cigar after traveling the world, getting cigars, expensive ones, whatever, as a consistent daily guitar is Punch Knuckle. I don't know why. I don't know if you've ever had. I don't know if you've ever had it, right?
I've had one. I've had one.
For some reason, it's still my favorite. Now, I just got back from Puerto Rico. I got a whole box of Puerto Rican cigars and Cubans, and I like the assortment, and I like being able to walk up to a box of cigars and go, "Oh, I want this today," or "I want this today." But as my default, if you want to call it a daily smoker, I don't have a daily, but a daily smoker or something that's my fallback, it's a Punch Knuckle cigar. They're about $10 a stick. They're, it's not that big of. Maybe it's my blue collar showing.
It's the, to me it's like, oh, old friend, this, I know this person, this cigar is going to be there for me. Mm-hmm. For me it's Padron, like a Padron 4000, Padron 7000, always great, right? And I love the variety, right? I don't know, I know I've got over 1,000 cigars in there, but there's, sometimes you want, hey, what do I want to try today? But sometimes you want, like, I need my buddy here today. And I always have a box of those in there. So that's curious.
And that one's mine.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time. And I'm looking forward to continue to grow the podcast with you. Thanks.
Absolutely. Me too, my friend.
Yeah. And that happens a lot, or somebody will, be an expert in multi-family apartment complexes or multifamily homes. And then all of a sudden they're trying to do an industrial deal. And those are two different animals, two different markets, different problems, different things that can be lurking about. You bring up mobile homes. So I live in Michigan, and I've noticed that there's almost like a corporate entities that are going around buying these parks, for lack of a better term, sprucing them up just a little bit, and then changing rents and things. And am I just observing something that's not really happening, or is that a real thing? There's bigger companies buying these things and trying to make money on them long term. Is that real?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what's happening. And that's what we're essentially doing with different asset classes. So, mobile home parks is one of them, but the opportunity is now, that used to be institutional buyers that were buying those. Now, what you may not realize is that mobile home park, and I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but that might actually be retail investors like you and me that are investing in that under that syndication, which is what kind of like the technical term is for it. And they're profiting off of that. So once you get to a certain size of property, the value is based on the net operating income versus being based on just market comparables. So that's why there's such a big business model in commercial real estate, because you can go in, invest, and if they can add value to that property based on how much money is being made, like a business is based on the value creation in terms of what it's what the value that it actually is, the price tag on it. That's what's happening with these assets. So you can be involved in that. That's the big thing. People don't know that they could be the one investing in that mobile home park, or they could be the one investing in that industrial property down the street.
And just having the right, somebody like you that can help guide them through the process. So let me switch gears a little bit. There's a topic that I've talked to a few people about over the last few months, where there's some people refer to it as work-life balance. Some people refer to it as that they're getting burnt out. And I'm trying to understand from different professionals early in your career, you went hard, you went all in, you went for 5 years, and you really probably didn't take care of yourself and, hang out with friends and family and such. Um, but those are choices that we make to get to a, a goal. You wanted to be the best. You did the things that you needed to do to get there, and you got to a place, and then you could make more decisions. And I'm not seeing that from certain, from the sales world, right? I'm not seeing salespeople who are willing to just go bust it for 5 years, built out, a great little business, because the salespeople are really entrepreneurs, working within a business of their own business. I'm not seeing that as much, and I'm not sure it's generational or if it's opportunity based. I'm just kind of curious what you've seen. You did it, and then that put you in a position where you got to make bigger choices and do different things. It, is that I just don't see it as a work life balance. I'm kind of trying to get somebody to convince me I'm wrong. So far, nobody has.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to convince you either. I mean, I was not balanced at all. Like I didn't eat properly. I, would drink like 5 espressos a day. I didn't want to eat lunch because I thought it would take too long. So I would just drink smoothies all day. But I did make a ton of money, like a ton of money. The biggest thing I think is a challenge is, for me was mindset. I just grew up with a very like Euro dad. He was like, you must work hard. You need this. So I almost, put a little bit too much pressure on myself to perform, which is what led to my burnout. But I think as well, the big thing is having a big goal. So I remember, I have a whiteboard. It's actually right beside me in my office with my next level goals that I'm planning to hit. But I was like just new in my sales career. I don't know, I was like 20 or something. And I had on there like 400,000 a year by, I think, oh no, it was more like 24, 400,000 a year by 30. And I just like couldn't even imagine doing that. Like it just was like a crazy number. But I think having a big goal personally for me is what drove me forward. And, maybe I can't speak for other people, but maybe at times, there's so much information out there. People don't know which direction to go. So maybe they're not pulled in the direction of where they want to go because they don't have clarity on what that goal or objective is. Because, if you want to make X amount of money by X time, maybe that's going to make you work harder. And, some people might not have that drive or that ambition. But I don't know. And if it's better or worse that I did that, I also don't know. I mean, it got me where I am today, and I have two little kids, and, we have the ability to kind of travel throughout the year and live in different places, which is an incredible blessing. But I can only, in a sense, speak to myself. So I don't think I'm going to be the one to answer that question for you today.
I don't know that there is an answer. I've always struggled with the idea of work life balance, and it's like, are we doing something that you enjoy, and are you gonna sometimes you're gonna press hard on the accelerator, and sometimes you can let off a little bit. And I think we got to find those. This is just my personal philosophy. You, I work every day. I mean, sometimes I take a day where I just don't use my phone. I just leave it someplace. But once a month I take at least half a day. Try to take a day where I just go do like that clarity break. Like, where am I at? Am I doing the things I'm supposed to be doing? What could I be doing better? What should I be doing different? And sort of just like walk through that with a journal, and then kind of reboot. um, it, so it's not being, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's the goal, and it's my job to get to the goal, and I get to set the goal. So I I, I struggle with the concept, but I think you did something similar, like where you bust your butt for a period of time, and then now you have all of this stuff. Now I get to make some bigger decisions as to what I want to do. I think
Yeah,
that's
and I still struggle with trying to work too much. It's like that's one of those things, like, I love working. Like, I'm like, I don't know. So even, I don't have to be a fund manager right now. Like, I have real estate assets, I have kids, I have a husband who's a very successful real estate investor as well. But I love every day waking up and bringing people's attention to something that they didn't know was available, and actually making a difference in their life financially. Like, I'm so driven by that passion right now that I like getting up and working on it. So yeah, it's just, I guess from what you shared, it's a blessing to me in my mind to be able to do this. It's a privilege to be able to do this, and that's very different from when I was in real estate sales, where my entire objective of that career was make as much money as possible and be the best in the city.
But you also had one other criteria to that, where you really wanted to do something. You wanted to add value to your customers, right? You weren't just dumping them in a house to make a commission.
No,
You were
yeah,
doing it the right way, so you got the right referrals and the introductions to other people. So it's. I think there's one other piece to it, that you said, that you were raised to work hard with a work ethic, and you know be self-sustainable, and that drive, that might be part of it as well. And maybe we're just lucky to be doing something that we really enjoy doing, and we love that. Because to me, it's I helped out somebody the other day who was struggling with one thing, and I'm like, he's like, I don't have the resources to pay you, and I'm like, you owe me 3 cigars. Give me 3 sessions, and we'll make it. This will make a difference. And when he reported to me like the next week what his numbers were and what he had done just by having 3 conversations, that was that was more rewarding than anything else I had done for the month. That this guy took that idea, ran with it, and changed. I mean, he's effectively now a monster on the phone. He's just killing his numbers. But it wasn't about money. It was about changing somebody's perspective and mindset. That was the fun part. And I sense that's what you're doing now. So you're not really working. You're just having fun,
yeah,
getting paid.
yep, pretty much.
Um, so there's a bunch of stuff we talked about, and you're in a space that, as you said, a lot of folks don't really understand and are not even aware that they can have this as an option, maybe down the road even. So if somebody's curious, we're gonna have all your stuff in the show notes. But if somebody's curious, what's the best way to say, hey, Sarah, I want to learn a little bit more. How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so multiple ways. I mean, I live and exist on LinkedIn. I post on there, and it's kind of to your point, like I'm on there every day for the most part, sharing educational content, connecting with people. So I think finding me on LinkedIn is the best way to just get a sense of, what it is that this is all about. And if it's a good fit for you, if it's something that actually aligns with your big picture goals and your goals for your family's financial future. That's always a great way to connect. I do, monthly meetups for free that are just all my investors in my community learning in a, very low key environment with a glass of wine, about, passive real estate investing. And then I have a podcast called Endless Wealth. And that's really to educate people that are, high performers and making good money, how they can kind of escape the grind and start getting their money to work hard for them, like themselves. So there's multiple ways that I'm available, but I'd say those are kind of the key places that I love to connect with people. And then, of course, I'm always on back-to-back calls a lot of the time with investors, but that's for somebody who's kind of feeling like, they are really, really into this and they actually feel like it'd be something that would be a good fit for them. Then, of course, we can talk one-on-one about it.
So if you're out there and you want to learn a little bit more, jump on LinkedIn, click on her profile in the show notes, and then follow and pay attention to what the educational content that Sarah's dropping into the world. Go listen to some of the episodes in the podcast. You do what, 2 a month, roughly?
Yeah, about 2 a month. Yeah. And then on LinkedIn, I should have said Sarah Miskelly if somebody doesn't check the show notes. That's my name on LinkedIn.
So and there's probably not 300 or 400 Sarah Miskelly's. It should be easy to find.
I think I'm the only one.
Yeah. So last question, Sarah, past or present, any relationship with cigars?
Oh boy. So like I said, I found this show because my husband, he is a huge cigar smoker. And I think the funniest thing for me right now is my son's 4 years old and he all he does all the time is spit because my husband's always spitting from his cigars, and it's like a terrible habit. And I'm like, Leo, you got to stop doing that. But it always makes me laugh because, like our kids, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have kids, they're always watching us and imitating us. So I always am like, babe, like stop spitting all the time in front of him. But yeah, he loves his cigars. It's his go-to thing. It's his kind of his one unhealthy, I'm doing air quotes, habit, but he loves it. And I have my wine, he has his cigars, and we're good.
Yeah, we can't qualify it as healthy, but it is. I think it does provide a certain amount of mental health
Yeah.
opportunity for us to slow down and start to think a little bit.
Yeah.
And as long as we're not having 3 or 4 bottles of wine a night, I think there's nothing wrong with that either. Um, but it is scary how much those little people pay attention to not just what we say, but what we do and our mannerisms. Um, I was telling a story with a friend of mine at breakfast this morning about something I said to my daughter that she repeated a few weeks later that got me in a lot of trouble. Um, and she was 8 at the time, and she's 22, and she still remembers it. So, yeah, be careful what we say and do in front of the little people because they're sponges, definitely sponges.
Yeah, my son's always writing emails. That's what he says. And he's like, I'm going to write an email. And he's 4. I'm like, oh gosh.
Well, that's probably something he's going to do plenty of. So, Sarah, I appreciate your insights and your time. Thank you much.
Great to be here.